My parents handed my sister $150,000 toward buying a house. Immediately afterward, they looked at me and said, "You are a failure." This was not whispered. It was a blunt declaration, delivered right in the middle of eating pot roast. My sister's husband raised his glass in celebration. My mother wore a casual smile, as if this judgment were completely ordinary. I still remember the moment I dropped my fork. The sound cut through their silence more sharply than any words could. When I stood up, no one tried to stop me. No one asked where I was going. I did not cry. That evening, I packed all my belongings into a single trunk. I drove until the highway was swallowed in darkness. 2 years later, they discovered the true power of silence, what it can create and what it can destroy. Before I continue, tell me where you are listening from. Knowing I am not alone helps. When my story ends, I want to hear what choice you would have made in my situation. People always claimed our family looked perfect from the outside. We wore coordinated sweaters for Christmas, and we offered polite smiles for church portraits. Our neighbors certainly thought we were the ideal household. What they never saw was the person who ironed those clothes, who cleaned the kitchen after those large meals, and who kept quiet to maintain the peace. That person was me, Monica. I was the reliable one, the troubleshooter, the person holding everything together behind the scenes. My sister Meline was the shining star. She earned perfect grades, won the homecoming crown, and received a full scholarship to Stanford. My father always filmed her award ceremonies as though she were a celebrity. When I brought home B's, he simply told me I wasn't putting in enough effort. When I became the art club president, my mother's smile barely reached her eyes. She simply said, "That's sweet." On Meline's 16th birthday, she received a sparkling blue car topped with a giant bow. My birthday dinner was at Chili's with a $75 gift card. "Show some gratitude," my mother instructed, smoothing my hair for a picture. The camera flash caught me blinking. That picture remains on their mantelpiece. It proves I exist, but it doesn't show the reality of that existence. College presented even greater challenges. My sister's education was entirely funded. Mine received zero financial support. When I asked for help, my father sliced the roast beef with the formality of a judge delivering a sentence. My mother added softly, "We won't pay for a public university. Those schools are for students who lack ambition." I absorbed both criticisms silently. I signed the student loan documents alone. The interest rate was 7.2%. Every dollar felt like a fresh wound. I worked 2 jobs just to survive, early mornings in the library and late nights at a diner. That winter, my hands constantly cracked from the cold. When I caught pneumonia, I called home, shaking. My father told me I needed better time management. My mother only asked if I was taking my vitamins. I hung up and stared at the dark screen. Then there was a knock. Miss Kim, who lived next door, was standing outside. She held a container of soup in a small paper envelope. "You are not alone," she said, gently placing it in my hand. Inside was a $750 check. It wasn't the money that overwhelmed me. It was the simple kindness. I sobbed until the soup had cooled. From that moment, I began truly recognizing the people who actually showed up for me. Later, a therapist named this behavior protective expectations. I began planning for abandonment, realizing it was necessary for survival. They failed to attend my graduation ceremony. I watched other families clutch flowers and take pictures. I held my diploma and murmured to myself, "Despite everything, I succeeded." I rode the bus home that evening, my certificate still warm in its cover. My phone vibrated with a new picture of Meline. Her engagement rings sparkled beneath string lights. The caption read, "This is what dreams are made of." I tapped the like button, then immediately disabled my notifications. Deep down, I knew dreams were possible, just not the life they had imagined for me. After graduation, my life became quieter, but this quiet was unsettling, not calming. The heavy silence felt like a structure surviving after a complete burn. I rented a studio apartment above a laundry business. The constant hum of machines replaced human interaction. I spent long days working as a low-level designer, carefully saving every paycheck as proof I could manage without their involvement. I told myself I was fine, self-sufficient, and unaffected. Yet, I sometimes woke at 3 a.m. I would stare at my phone, scrolling through their pictures, family Sunday meals, Meline's bridal events, trips I'd missed. Their happy faces seemed fixed, and my absence appeared intentional. When the actual wedding invitation arrived, it did not come from my family. An automated email from the coordinator appeared, featuring gold script that formally read, "We cordially invite you." My name was misspelled. I stared at the screen for a full minute before shutting down my computer. That night, I scheduled my first therapy appointment. Dr. Hayes had comforting eyes and a calm, flowing voice. She listened as I explained my family dynamics, how love was always conditional, and how their approval felt like air I had to struggle to earn. After I finished, she asked one simple question. Had I ever tried not working so hard for it? I carried that question back to my apartment. It resonated while I folded clothes, brushed my teeth, and watched the blinking light indicating a message. My mother's voice played aloud. "Please call us, dear. Stop being difficult." I ignored it. Days turned into weeks. Reminders from Dr. Hayes flashed across my phone. A boundary is not a barrier. It is a door under your supervision. I practiced saying no in the mirror. At first it felt awkward, then gradually, it became firm. That single word felt strange, almost dangerous. When the holidays arrived, I sent no gifts, no messages. The first day brought guilt, the second felt easier, and by the third, I could breathe without needing their approval. Meline got married, and I was not there. Social media filled with pictures, her lace dress, our beaming parents, captioned, "Our family is eternal." I viewed the images from my small outdoor balcony, the city sounds rising below. A bee circled a nearly dead potted plant on the railing. I realized that even insects understand where they should not settle. The following week, my mother left another voice message. "You are complicating this situation unnecessarily." I deleted the message immediately without listening to the rest. That evening, I turned off my phone's ringer, sat beside the window, and allowed the resulting silence to fill the space they had once controlled. From that moment on, I ended all contact. There were no calls, no messages, and no explanations given. Silence became my language. It was deliberate, firm, and intentional. At the time, I did not understand that this silence would become the most powerful thing I would ever build. It did not fix everything instantly, but it gave me distance and clarity. When their voices stopped dominating my thoughts, I finally began hearing my own. My work life settled into a steady routine. Days blurred together with design drafts, client deadlines, and late-night caffeine. I was not thriving, but I was no longer falling apart. With each completed project, another bill was paid, reinforcing the proof that I could survive without their permission. Still, a deep sadness lingered. Every public holiday felt like standing outside a brightly lit window, watching warmth meant for someone else. One February, I became sick with pneumonia again. I remember the sterile lighting of the emergency clinic and the steady beeping of machines. Lying there, shivering, I scrolled through my phone and paused over my mother's contact. My thumb hovered just before pressing call. Then I shut the screen off. I did not need to invite another disappointment. When I returned home, I found a note taped to my door. There was soup inside. P. Kim. Miss Kim, my former next-door neighbor, had somehow found me again. She handed me a thermal container and said, "Just rest. Everything else can wait." Her quiet kindness moved me more deeply than any apology I had ever hoped for. By the time spring arrived, I was healed and restless for something more. I wanted a life that wasn't built around bracing for the next hurt. Therapy helped me name this feeling. I was exhausted from simply surviving. I wanted to build something real. I began researching real estate listings, affordable acreage in the Hudson Valley, far enough away that my thoughts could finally settle. It was the kind of land most people drove past without noticing. The kind of place no one could ever take from me. 3 months later, I signed papers for 40 acres of neglected soil and a collapsing structure with more broken sections than intact windows. Anyone else would have called it a disaster. I saw possibility. The first nights were brutal. There was no heat, unreliable internet, only wind shaking the walls and my frustration directed at leaking pipes. But for the first time, every problem belonged to me. I taught myself to seal drafts with plastic sheeting. I learned drywall repair through online videos. I figured out how to keep bee colonies alive through winter. Ben, my neighbor across the ridge, showed up one morning with coffee and a sincere smile. "Is the land working you, or are you working the land?" he asked. I hadn't laughed like that in months. Weekends became routine. My hands stayed muddy, my hair filled with sawdust, my neck burned by the sun. Slowly, rows of lavender began emerging in the back field, shy green shoots pushing through stubborn earth. I kept detailed notebooks, recording every mistake and every successful bloom. The pages piled up, proof of a new beginning. One evening, I stood in the doorway of the partially restored farmhouse, watching the fields glow under a full moon. My breath fogged the air, but I felt calm. 4 years, I had chased acceptance. Now I was creating it with my own hands. As the first season ended, I realized I had not just gone silent. I had gained sovereignty. Spring came early that year. The lavender bloomed in wide, uneven rows, soft purple swaying in the wind. The silence felt different now. It felt earned. The bees were steady and loyal, and I worked beside them without fear. I did not know this piece was about to fracture. It started with a text from an unknown number. "Monica, is that property really yours?" I did not respond. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was my father. I waited long enough for voicemail to begin. His voice sounded casual, almost polished. "Your sister drove past a property in the Hudson Valley today. Big field, metal roof, lots of lavender. Do you own it?" I wiped soil from my hands and looked across the open land. "I do," I said when I finally returned the call. He paused, clearly searching for the right tone. "It looks good," he admitted. "We didn't realize you were doing so well. Maybe we should help you expand. I have investor connections." I stopped him. "No, Dad. You missed that chance." He laughed once, dismissive. "Don't be difficult. We're your family." That word felt heavy. "Family doesn't call you a failure while funding someone else," I said quietly. I ended the call. 2 days later, an email arrived with the subject line "investment proposal." I did not open it. I archived it. A week passed, and the lavender continued growing undisturbed. Then a courier van came down the dirt road, dust rising behind it. The driver asked for my signature and handed me a large envelope. Inside was a personal check for $150,000. The memo read, "For your college." A short note followed in my mother's handwriting. "We were too harsh. This is our attempt to fix things." I sat with it for 10 minutes. I felt calm, not emotional. Then I stood, found scissors, and cut the check into thin strips. I placed them in a new envelope and wrote one sentence in blue ink. "Forgiveness cannot be bought." I sent it back via certified mail. 3 days later, my father appeared at my gate. The security cameras caught him first. Neatly pressed khakis, polished shoes, his familiar prepared expression. He waved at the camera as if I was still waiting for approval. I pressed the intercom. "Leave," I said. "I only need 5 minutes later," he replied. His voice cracked slightly. "I was wrong, Monica. I want to discuss this." "You had 26 years to speak," I answered. "You used that time poorly." He tried his old authority again. "We are your parents. We made mistakes, but parents are entitled to access." I almost laughed. Access is earned, not assumed, and it certainly cannot be bought. The silence that followed was immense. Can we just move past this? You can move without involving me. He looked straight into the lens, his eyes weary. He begged for something he could not name. Forgive us, he whispered. I can do that, I said, my voice steady. But forgiveness is separate from reconciliation. The gate motor started. It closed slowly, mechanical and final. He remained until the metal panels met, blocking all view. The camera light stopped flashing. I recorded the visit in a logbook. Time, date, weather. Documentation serves better than memory when issues return. I then returned to the fields. Work provided more stability than memories ever could. That evening, I watched the footage. I saw his uncertain posture stripped of its usual power. I noticed that I did not react. I learned a lesson better than any therapist could teach. Peace is not achieved by receiving apologies. It is secured by protecting boundaries. A week later, a second envelope arrived. No note, only the same check amount marked as void. A possible gesture of guilt or surrender. I shredded it immediately. The season moved on. The lavender deepened in color. The bees multiplied. The land no longer felt temporary. One morning, while checking the hives, I saw Meline's car idling far down the road. She did not enter the gate. She sat still. Her face appeared distant behind the glass. She held her phone, maybe taking a picture for our parents to prove I existed outside their world. I did not acknowledge her. I did not move. I let her look as long as she wished. That afternoon, my father called again. Your sister says the property appraisal is over $2.5 million. Is that correct? That is the amount listed, I confirmed. He fell silent. I could hear his breathing shift. Then came the usual reframing, disguised as concern. You built something amazing, but you cannot handle that scale alone. Let us help you expand. You need expertise, real guidance this time. I remembered every lecture, every refusal of their money, every smirk at my efforts. I recalled the girl who once craved their acceptance. Then I delivered my answer. Simple, absolute. No. Monica. No is a complete statement, I said, recalling Dr. Hayes's guidance. For the first time, the word carried no guilt, only finality. I ended the call. Outside, the fields buzzed with life. The lavender scent drifted through the open windows. A car engine started beyond the gate and disappeared into the distance. That night, I walked the perimeter of the land with a flashlight, tracing every fence line I had built myself. Each post was solid. Each wire taut. The boundaries, both physical and emotional, were holding. They had labeled me a failure, but failure had produced something more enduring than their approval. 2 years of silence had transformed into soil, roots, and blooms. Under the moonlight, I realized one truth. I was no longer part of their world. I had built my own. Summer arrived, hot and complete. The lavender grew tall and fragrant. Harvest week began. The fields hummed with activity. Sarah and Liam cut stems, their laughter filling the spaces. Their joy replaced the old weight of guilt. We packed boxes late into the evening. The barn doors stayed open, cicadas loud in the trees. The first major delivery, a steady 6-figure shipment, left at dawn. I watched the truck disappear down the dirt road and felt profound release. For the first time, everything supporting me was something I had built. I sent appreciation packages to those who had truly shown up. Miss Kim, Dr. Hayes, even Ben, who now helped with irrigation. Each package contained a simple note. Thank you for being there when you didn't have to be. One morning, I found an old family photo tucked in a book. We were smiling perfectly, my younger self at the edge of the frame. I whispered, "You got out." The farm was alive, outside, real and honest. The gate remained closed, but my life had never been more open. They gave my sister a house. I had built an entire life. True peace became the only legacy I required. They called it defiance. I called it healing. If you have ever prioritized peace over seeking permission, you will understand my choices. There are other stories like mine, about family betrayal and quiet forms of revenge. Continue watching the playlist. You are not alone.